of England has pledged to improve care for people suffering from mental health crises, including bringing to an end the use of police cells. Well, Rachel Kelly is here this morning. She's lived with depression for 16 years and has a memoir of her recovery that she's written. Rachel, good morning to you.
Good morning.
When I heard this morning, I actually was not aware that people who were having a mental health crisis could still be taken into police custody, that this was still happening in this day and age. It seems absolutely ridiculous, to be honest.
Yes, it's been a terrible thing, and it's a wonderful news that hopefully it's coming to an end. Basically, if somebody's on the streets and the police pick them up, they have powers under the Mental Health Act to section them. I think it's a 136 section, which means that they take them to a police cell, and the police are obviously trying to get them to a safe place, but sometimes that safe place is not available.
And is it fair to say that actually when people are having a crisis, actually, well, obviously a police cell is not a good place, but actually things like A&E are not necessarily a good place either? They need to be seen by a specialist, a crisis team perhaps?
Yes, I think mental health is a very particular illness, and one of the characteristics that I certainly experienced at the height of what you might call the most extreme of my depressive episodes is an incredible sense of fear, a kind of panic. I had this feeling that I was sort of falling and I needed something to hold on to. So A&E is quite a threatening place, and you need very precise and specific proper care, people who understand what mental health illness is and how you can be a threat to yourself and you can be a threat to others.
In coming, as we look forward to hopefully improved services, what is key to you, and from your experience, is it about targeted resources?
I think that my own experience, which I've written about in my memoir Black Rainbow, which you mentioned, is that you may need lots of different approaches. So you may need medication. I certainly did use antidepressants, but for me I've had to use a lot of other strategies, and you may need a whole range. And actually I think the research is that the best outcomes come from lots of approaches. So therapy, diet, there's a lot of talk about mindfulness, exercise, alongside medication and ongoing support. Because one of the problems we have is that people go to hospital, they get treated, they come out, and then they go back in, because they then don't have long-term strategies to really manage their mental health.
And what was your experience of how you were treated by other people? Because it's not a tangible illness, in a sense, in that it's not like a broken leg, it's not something that you can see and sympathise with in that physical way.
Yes. Well, I was lucky in the sense I had a lot of support from my family. I think it was really my own sense of sort of shame and my own sense of this couldn't be happening to me. So in a way I was my own worst critic, and when I work alongside groups of people suffering from depression and anxiety, I think that's often what I find is that forget the stigma in society as a whole, which is definitely there, but it's also people's own sense of shame, which often means that they don't come forward to get treated.
I'm always a bit reluctant, to plug books and there. You've got to be a little bit careful on news. But I wonder with Black Rainbow, with your memoir, I imagine that if anyone is going through depression or heading down, or perhaps trying to lift themselves up, how useful is it for them to read someone else's experience and to use that as a bit of a ladder, perhaps, in knowing that they can cling on to something?
Well, my feeling when I was very unwell, I had my first breakdown 17 years ago, was I felt terribly alone. And I think I would have found it very helpful to think that there was somebody like me who was just a kind of what you might call hard-working professional, who didn't ever think that depression would be part of their working life, to hear a story of what happened, because there has been a lot of wonderful stuff, particularly from celebrities, talking about how they've suffered from depression, but I'm more interested in what you might call just the sort of average person, and who maybe doesn't think that they're kind of wildly creative and therefore it's okay to have depression.
Is it necessary or helpful, at least, for when someone is in that dark place, to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. But is it easy to think, actually, I can't see a future here?
I used to have this card that my psychiatrist gave me. It was his business card, and he'd written across the front in this blue ink, "You will get better." And I would hang on to that for dear life. And my message is that I think you can get better. There are good ways of getting better. And I wanted to share that because I felt so passionately that, notwithstanding the fact it's an illness and it has, very strong physical characteristics, there are plenty of things you can do yourself, and that's what I wanted to share.
Rachel, really good to talk to you. Good to see there is light at the end of the tunnel. I hope it'll help people along the way. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks very much.
Well, stay with